What's going on, everybody? I'm just a simple Canadian here to react to a simple American here to react about bagged milk. Yes, we sell milk not just in cartons, not just in jugs, but also in bags. It's very normal to me, having grown up in this scenario, and it's something we currently have in a fridge upstairs. I never thought that this was unique to Canada until, well, maybe just a few years ago. And I think it's going to be more than just the bagged milk that Tyler is going on about. So please enjoy this simple video of a Canadian reacting to the wonderful American Tyler Bucket as he learns more about Canada and our bagged milk.
What's going on, everyone? I'm just a simple, typical American guy here to learn and react to 25 funny differences between Canadians and Americans. Now, Canada kind of fills this interesting thought process and, I don't know, this interesting area in American culture and minds. Okay. Americans, when they think of Canada, think of very polite people.
Typically.
Like that some of the pronunciation, I can't even enunciate and pronounce saying the word pronunciation, but the way.
Yes, pronounce or enunciate. Thank you. As Canadians, we're very proud of those two words and saying them correctly. Ask Brendan Fraser. We also happen to be aware of the whole about a boot thing.
Yeah. That Canadians say things is different than the way Americans say things. The accent is so similar, and then there's just this tiny little differences. And
yes, it's so true. Whenever we travel south of the border, it doesn't take very long for someone, say, working at a Denny's, for example, to say, "You're from Canada, aren't you?" And we're like, "Oh, what gave it away?" There's just a little something about the accent. Or one of us let the word "a" slip. You know, it just happens to be like we can be saying something and we think y'all will relate, so we'll say like, this is really cool, eh?
Some of the slang is different. And
oh yeah, like in America they say beanie in referring to a type of hat. Not this hat. This is a unique hat. But in Canada we call it a toque.
It's funny what comes to Americans' mind when they think of Canada. It's just like the stupidest little things, when in reality it feels like Americans know next to nothing about Canada.
That sound, by the way, was our emergency alert system. I believe that was an Amber Alert. But since I don't leave the house, I will not be helping in that Amber Alert.
At least me, for instance. But I think this video of 25 funny differences between Canadians and Americans not only will be entertaining, but enlighten me on a bit of Canadian culture that I've been not made aware of, and that will, entertain us at the very least. So let's check it out.
Oh, I'm hoping they mentioned that we call a snowmobile a sled.
The U.S. have somewhat of a love-hate relationship. It's a sibling rivalry.
What did he say? Love-hate? Canada and U.S.?
Yes, similar. Like, we love each other as neighbors, and we hate each other like brothers. It's very simple in our view. Let's think to the rivalry between the Ottawa Senators hockey team and the Buffalo Bruins hockey team, or the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Bruins. Why is it always Buffalo?
Is it a love-hate relationship? I don't think so. I think Americans pretty much love Canadians for the most part. Just Canadians in general. We just think they're super nice.
Like, yes and no. We're very Americanized. And we act very polite in many situations. And y'all don't. And that kind of rubs us the wrong way. Like, ending a phone call, we like to say goodbye, And in my experience, Americans like to hang up.
Canada and the US have somewhat of a love-hate relationship. It's
Okay.
a sibling rivalry that goes back centuries. So, what exactly are the differences between the two?
Yeah.
Today, we're going to take a look at how the longest unprotected border in the world has defined North America. I'm Mike with List 20.
The longest unprotected border. I never even thought about that.
Yes, a giant land border, and a lot of it is just forest, plains, and water. And the forest has like a giant swath cut out right at the border so that we can see when something is crossing over. That's about how protected it can be sometimes.
But the fact that it's unprotected is
Mostly.
probably a good sign, right?
Yeah.
Means that there's a cordial agreement there between the US and Canada.
5.
When I think of the US-Canadian border, definitely just think of it'd be no big deal, no problem for a Canadian to come to America, American to travel to Canada. It's all good.
Yeah, pretty much. It's that easy. Last time I went across the border, I was in a car. There were people. We handed our passports over. We said why we were there. And then they handed our passports back, said, have a nice day. And then coming back across, they just wanted to make sure that we didn't bring anything we weren't supposed to. And they didn't check, they just asked. We were a trustworthy family group going through together. We were obviously tired after a long day out. And I said something in French, and they just said, welcome home.
And these are 25 funny differences between Canadians and Americans.
Okay. Okay, we got an intro. I can respect the intro.
25. Canadians tend to trust authority, whereas Americans are suspicious of it. This goes back.
Absolutely true. Absolutely. It's just an American thing. Americans are very obsessed with their freedom. Freedom.
Well, this aged interestingly, remember the Freedom Convoy. There's a lot of Canadians who distrust authority and who insist on freedom. And I personally have known a lot of Canadians who had bad run-ins with the police. Now, usually because they were doing something they weren't supposed to do, so as a result, they formed a bad opinion about police and then would act out when confronted with police. But in my experience, even while breaking laws, it is all very polite and cordial. Oh, hello, officer. How can I help you? Yeah, it's not what do you want or get away from me or I have my rights, but it's how can I help? And we speak politely and we listen. We comply for the most part. Everybody's different and some Canadians are more polite than others.
Freedom. So they don't like authority, so they question it. It does not bring them comfort, but rather suspicion. It's just an American thing. I don't know.
Back to the fact that the Canadians remained loyal to the crown, while America showed King George the door.
Is that what it stems back to? That's a bit of a generalization.
Well, that's at least the start of it, right?
It could be true. I don't know, because any deep-seated mistrust of government I personally have, I just like to keep as a healthy mistrust. Just, questioning, make sure everything's cool, everything makes sense, that kind of questioning.
And that's very rational, very normal, and definitely common here in Canada as well.
Not like wanting to kick him out or something. Hold on, what did he say?
Canadians remained loyal to the crown, while America showed King George the door.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's all based on some historical event like that, but who knows? What do I know?
24. Canadians bond over hockey. Americans bond over football.
Yes.
In general, Canadians also put less emphasis on sports.
Oh my gosh, Americans love sports.
A lot of Canadians love sports as well, specifically baseball and hockey. Football and soccer, or football and American football, non-respectively. Definitely popular, but not as much as baseball and hockey. I myself am not a sports fan. I can't speak much on this.
My God. Sports is... I mean, I'd go as far as to say one of the number one most important pastimes, industries, like at this point. There are a few things that Americans care more about. They care about their sports. They want their sport. Give us the sports. Obviously, it differs on an individual basis, and we appreciate a bit of hockey, you know, but nothing compared to football, so that's definitely correct.
23. Canadians spend a lot of time comparing themselves to the US. Americans don't think about Canada very often at all. Actually, almost never.
It's very true. We do look to our southern neighbors a lot, and a lot of the times we're like, oh, I'm glad I don't live down there.
That's kind of a mean way to put it. That's kind of cruel. That's mean. We think about Canada, but I don't know if he is correct that Canadians think about America. Could be true, could be not true. I don't know.
Well, we do. We watch your TV, we read your newspapers, we listen to your music. Your culture floats up here, usually about a few months later, and we have a lot of interaction. There used to be a TV spot on This Hour Has 22 Minutes, a Canadian political satire sitcom, sketch show, there you go. And Rick Mercer, a famous Canadian comic, had this segment called Talking to Americans, where he would say ridiculous things to Americans on the street, and they would just go with it because they had no idea.
But Americans just don't think about any other nation other than themselves. Very, what's the word? Not greedy. Why am I thinking greedy? Selfish. Very selfish. Now,
I'd say self-centered and selfish.
It's probably a culture thing. We think about all the things, the wonders and the horrors going on in America.
It's American exceptionalism.
And not really much else in the world unless it's real crazy. So, nothing against Canada in particular.
We get it.
I love you, Ken. And all my Canadian friends.
Yeah, we don't take it personally.
This is in jest, dear God.
Oh, yeah, okay.
22. Some parts of Canada sell milk in bags. Bagged milk would be highly suspicious in the US. I'd totally drink it.
Bagged milk? Why? What's the purpose? What is this bagged milk? Why are we doing this? We have it in cartons made of cardboard. I suppose there's no reason that makes perfect sense. The liquid would get soaked up inside of all the cardboard if there wasn't weird linings and preservatives involved.
Waxes
or something.
and plastics.
I can't even... I'm going to dive down this rabbit hole far too deeply.
All right, so just if this is foreign to you, picture, like you said, cardboard box. You put a liquid in, the cardboard soaks it all up. So you have to line the inside of the cardboard with either wax or a plastic bag. Now, if you didn't know, the average can of Coca-Cola has a plastic bag on the inside. So you're actually drinking bagged Coca-Cola out of a can. So let's take the can away from it. You've just got a bag of beverage. Okay, so we've specifically designed these bags to have like corners, and we put it in a specifically designed jug that's meant to hold the bag, and then you either use snippers or a little blade and a hook to slice off the corners, one to pour, and depending on the size of that pouring hole, another one to let air in as the liquid comes out. Yeah, I mean, like, if you drink a lot of milk, you don't really need to seal it up, because you're just gonna drink it anyway.
If given the opportunity, bagged milk, I would drink it. I would also be entertained by it because it is strange.
Milk's great. Best beverage. No, absolutely.
No, milk is fantastic.
Milk is the best beverage.
Milk is good.
Yes, it is.
Milk
And
is
it comes
good.
with chocolate.
Yeah. I actually don't like chocolate as much.
That's
I prefer white. I can do it. I prefer...
Oh my gosh.
Same.
I didn't know we were gonna get these little tidbits. They left the camera rolling on some of these. Okay. I mean, I like chocolate milk too.
Oh.
I like milk. Is debatable these days in the health circles. Like pasteurization was very good, developed by Louis Pasteur, a Canadian. A great treatment to sanitize the milk, but also raw milk is good in its own right. The different fat percentages have been debated. The different fat percentages have been highly debated over the years. And chocolate milk, I mean, you're just adding a lot of sugar to your milk. You should probably just drink milk and eat chocolate.
21. The U.S. sees itself as a melting pot. That was a good restaurant. While Canada sees itself as a mosaic. The difference is very slight, but basically in the U.S., there's more mixing and blending between immigrant cultures. Yeah. While in Canada, immigrants tend to keep more of their language and traditions rather than mix with others.
Yeah, very much so. So you've got people coming from other countries that bring their culture with them, and they hold their culture, and they share the culture, and we revel in it together. Whereas in America, I understand it to be a melting pot where your culture slowly melts into the American culture. So Canada is like a tapestry, and America is like a soup.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, we use that term, melting pot. He's correct. That's what we like to say. And yeah, certainly different people of different backgrounds certainly feel free to co-mingle and coexist and intertwine and become married, make families. But you would also get what he's saying about Canada, where you'd also get people from all sorts of places coming and sticking to their traditions and their culture and way of life and being very proud of that and wanting to keep that intact. So I would say that's true in America as well.
Yeah, it's just the difference between melting and layering, I suppose.
20. Canadians have more of a tall poppy syndrome, which is a tendency to distrust or discredit anyone who stands out in a prominent position or wealth. In this sense...
Really? I like that. Because I'm all about the mistrust, the questioning. So to hear that Canadians... What did he... Tall poppy?
This is the first time I've heard that phrase. Let's keep going.
Is what he said? Questioning people who stick out when they're in positions of authority? Or that's interesting. Makes sense.
I mean, Derp Trudeau, right?
Distrust or discredit anyone who stands out in a prominent position or wealth. In this sense, Canada is a lot more like Europe. Conformity is more encouraged in Canada than in the US. If America does well at anything, it's encouraging innovation and non-conformity.
Yeah, seriously. It is definitely an American trend. And more than a trend. It's just a way of life. Sticking out, being an individual, not conforming, is very edgy and very cool. I mean, like anything, it's in moderation, right? If you're trying to stick out just for the sake of sticking out, it's kind of dumb. It's not very cool. But if you're just an individual doing your own thing, whatever that is, being unique, then people respect that and applaud it.
And I think this has a lot to do with the community aspect that we try to foster in Canada, where, yes, you can stand up and be great, but you don't want to step on other people to do it. You want to be the rising tide that lifts all boats.
Which I agree with.
19. Canadians love their flag, but Americans seem to love their flag more. Seriously, nobody beats America at flags.
Although we do love the Canadian flag. Maybe for like stupid reasons, because most Americans just like that it's a maple leaf and they're like, oh, that's cool, that's different, so we like it. Kind of a dumb reason, very surface level, but they do love our flag as well. Although the American flag's kind of in a weird spot where it's becoming associated with like overly nationalistic temperament. So there is a trend, I think, in modern America where, with certain points of view, certain political points of view, the American flag they're not as gung ho to be like, here, holding the flag and be like, this represents me 100%. That has gone down a little, I would say.
Well, I tell you, if you're traveling most streets that are populated by houses, right? Any city streets, you're going to see a lot of American flags hanging off of porches, on lawns, out of windows. It's a lot of flags. Canadian flags, you do not see them hanging off of porches, on lawns, or in windows. It's like we have a solemn pride in our flag, whereas Americans are like, yeah, flag, America, number what? Yeah, American exceptionalism.
You were going to chart it. It has gone down a bit.
You can't beat Canadians at maple syrup, though.
18.
Okay.
Canadians put more emphasis on higher education. Actually, Canada puts more emphasis on it than any other country in the world.
Oh, that's cool. Any other country in the world, that's something to hang your hat on, to be proud of. Promoting higher education, higher learning, that's great.
It leads the OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, with 53% of the population having a college education.
Whoa.
Okay, I knew that, but I didn't know that that was surprisingly high. Like half the population doesn't seem like a lot to me. Then again, we don't have a lot of incentives to be going to school, so in the last 20 years, those numbers have been declining.
I think that is way higher than in America. I'd be scared to know the percentage. Over half of Canadians are college educated. That's amazing. That's great.
The OECD average is 32%.
17.
Canadians generally approve of their government. Americans hate and distrust theirs. This
Like, we mostly approve, but we also highly disapprove. And that comes down to how the House of Commons gets set up. The leader of the political parties and what they do over time. We usually bounce back from red team to blue team to red team to blue team, but sometimes one of those teams will hold on a little long, and Trudeau has been holding on a little too long at this point.
boils down to the fact that the Canadians see government as a good thing, while
What a way to phrase it. Like all Americans just hate their governments. Certainly is true for some, and certainly not true for others.
That's how the media portrays it. We've got the hardcore leftists, the hardcore rightists. I'll just keep going now.
So that's a little bit of a harsh statement, but perhaps his point is, compared to Canada, there's a lot more Americans in that point of view. So I think that's what he's getting at.
Americans see it as a necessary evil.
So Canadians see it as what?
Government as a good thing, while Americans
A good thing. Yeah, and I think that's fine. That's cool.
I mean, it is kind of necessary in ways.
Yeah. Government can do a lot of good for your nation, for humanity, especially when it properly can represent the will of the people and what's best for the people, and putting our best minds, hopefully, together for the greater good of humanity, Canada. Yeah, I think that's great.
see it as a necessary evil.
16.
Americans are more individualistic. This goes back to the Wild West mentality. The very word Canada, on the other hand, is derived from a local Iroquoian word for village. Canadians are more communally minded.
Yes, and that was shown in Heritage Minute. This was a commercial that used to run on TV back in the 90s, where Canadian settlers came upon First Nations, and the First Nations gesture towards their village and say, Kanata, and Canada. And the translator says, oh, he's calling this land Canada, Canada. And in Ontario, we have around the Ottawa region, western Ottawa, a small town called Kanata. And that comes from the same place, our village.
Okay.
15.
Canada's
Interesting.
right wing is America's left wing. In the political sense, Canadian politics tend to be more liberal. This doesn't mean that Canada doesn't have conservative politics. It certainly does. The political system is a lot less polarized, however, and doesn't pull to the extremes as much. It has 5 primary political parties.
I think that's very healthy, honestly.
5. So we've got red, blue, green, orange. Are we talking the progressive conservatives? I forget their color.
If you're going to have a cohesive nation, while you may not agree with this is all in theory, hypothetically, if you didn't agree with X nation's politics, you have to agree that having a nation with like a cohesive mutual agreement on their political point of views, where there's no extreme party.
Ah, le Parti québécois, j'ai oublié Québec. Je m'excuse Québec, je m'excuse. C'est juste très simple parce que je suis anglophone. Or in English, yeah, sorry, I forgot about the Parti québécois, the Quebec party. That would be the number 5. They're a blue and white party. So that would be, because we are big, we have lots of different regions that need representation. We've got the liberals for the people who want freedom and to continue marching towards the future. We've got the conservatives who want to keep things the way they are and be more financially secure. We've got the Green Party, who wants more take care of the planet. We've got the Orange Party, the NDP, and they're basically for the farmers, the rural areas. And then the Parti québécois, which is all about the Quebec, because Quebec is just different.
On either end, always never being able to agree on things, hating each other. That just sucks, and that's bad. And kind of what America is like at this point in time anyway. But so I'm really jealous of a nation who has settled upon a political system where it is working, everyone is happy, it's doing good things, and the political temperature is mellow, where you don't have such extremes and people, disagree on things, have different viewpoints, but everyone's much closer in their points of view on how things should work. That just makes it a more efficient way for a nation to run and exist. I am not commenting on what that political stance should be at all. I'm just saying, in this hypothetical.
Yeah, because Americans, the two-party system, they're supposed, there's a middle ground, right? And then there's the conservatives and there's the Democrats. Only the conservatives have gone a little bit further and the Democrats have gone way over to the side. And for all the people who live in the middle here, it's hard to find where to vote, I imagine.
If you I'm trying not to get in trouble here. You would want a nation that's operating at 100% would have a lot of points of view of the people, and the politicians would be pretty close together, so everyone can get things done that everyone wants. Yeah, something like that.
Something like
14.
that.
Both Americans and Canadians think they're more free. In Canada, this is due to more progressive policies. In the US, it's due to lack of government policies.
Very true. Americans associate freedom with lack of policy, where there is no law. There is no policy there, and I'm merely free to do whatever it is I choose to do. And we kind of have just a social understanding that most people will do what is good for society.
All right. Whereas we put in laws to protect people and make it so that old laws don't hold them back. We can put new laws to give them more choice and freedom, such as, let's go back to the 90s here. Gay marriage was legalized all through Canada long before it was legalized in the United States. Uh, we'll talk about, oh, the topless laws of Ontario. So, throughout many places in North America, men going topless on a hot summer's day, totally normal. You see a shirtless guy mowing his lawn, that's fine. The women started to get jealous, and so laws changed so that women are also allowed to go topless if they want to. The only exceptions would be if someone complained, then be it man or woman going topless would have to cover up. Now, since that happened, I've seen maybe a handful of women walking around in public without tops, and it's something to see, but it's not like anything to rave about.
And obviously that can backfire when you don't have a lot of laws and procedures and things limiting what people have access to and blah, 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 all that. But yeah, what he is saying is certainly true.
13.
Americans are more confrontational. Not necessarily in a bad way, but Canadians are more likely to just hold everything in and let it stew. Or apologize.
I mean, then I'm probably more like a Canadian in that sense, if this is true. I don't know if that's a stereotype or not, but I haven't interacted with people from other countries and nations to really know if this is true or not.
I think that has a lot to do with personal upbringing. How polite were you raised? Do you know the difference between a dessert fork, a salad fork, and a dinner fork? Do you know the difference between a steak knife, a table knife, and a butter knife? You know, that kind of thing.
But I have definitely heard Americans are aggressive, argumentative, willing, if not that, they're willing to speak their mind because we've been raised and told growing up to speak our mind, to have opinions on stuff. That's the American culture.
Now, we also have been told to speak our mind and have opinions on things, but not to step all over someone else while doing it. Remember, everyone is going through their own thing, right? There's two things in life every person must do. We all must suffer and we all must die. And considering that, we don't want to force any death or suffering on anyone else, because we don't want that to be forced on us.
So that's why we do it. That's why it is that way. It's just our way of life at this point. We don't know any other way. No, no polite holding it in poshness for us, right?
Okay, so my professional career has been on the telephone, and there have been a lot of times speaking with American customers where after I help them with their technical issue, I say, well, I just hope you have a wonderful day today. And the common response from Americans is often, yeah, click.
Things would be a lot easier if that were the way. We could all use a little more Canadian in us, I do believe.
12.
Canadians pretend Canada has no problems. America pretends the US just has quirks.
11.
Okay.
Canadians don't get to experience the joys of Pandora and Spotify due to licensing restrictions.
Oh, we have Spotify. I had a subscription. I had a subscription at the time this reaction video was originally recorded. Tyler's video.
What? 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 Really?
Well, hey, I don't think that's one of our problems.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's really there must be other ways to listen for Canadians to listen to their favorite music, favorite songs. I hope there is. My God.
Yeah.
Spotify is a godsend. It's the best thing ever.
Okay, so there might be some music that Spotify can't license because those licenses are exclusive to the United States or the songs are currently licensed elsewhere. That's not very different from the TV streaming providers.
I can play any song I've ever wanted to play at any moment on my phone. Yeah, couldn't live without it. Oh my goodness. That's more shocking than anything I've heard on this list so far. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover from this.
10,
Although Canadians do feel quite a bit of connection with their province/city, Americans identify much more with their state than they do with the country as a whole, except
yes.
for Quebec, Canada's Texas.
Yeah, because Texas is the biggest state, Quebec is the biggest province. Also, you know, me, I see myself as a Canadian, not an Ontarian.
Yeah, Americans are very, very proud of where they were born and raised, unless for some reason there's some kind of American stereotype against that particular state, like that Texas is full of cowboys or something. But but hey, that doesn't even matter. The Texans are very, very proud to be Texans. Doesn't stop them. But yeah, Americans are by and far very proud of the state and city where they grew up.
9,
The Québécois sont aussi very fiers. Sorry, that's a little franglais right there. Yeah, in Quebec, they're very proud of being Québécois. No doubt about that. And to all my Québécois viewers here, you rock.
Canadians talk about the War of 1812 a lot. Americans aren't quite sure what that is. Boston
Yeah.
Tea Party, anyone?
I know. Yeah,
true.
this is in one of my other videos. When I was learning about the history of Canada, I was shocked to learn about the War of 1812.
And the burning of the White House.
My goodness. That is sad that Americans are not more aware of this. And I am personally sorry if Canadians are taught about this, learn about this, and here in America we don't care at all. That
Which is astounding to me because burning the White House in the War of 1812 resulted in the house being painted white.
deserves an apology. That ain't right. That is weird because it was
Thank you.
a American-Canadian conflict, right? That's very significant. Very, very significant. I think, again, it's nothing against Canada. It's just that American education isn't very good at teaching the history of anything to do with foreign conflict or foreign nations, policies, government. It's just not good at that. We certainly learned about America and the British Empire as far as that's concerned with our fighting for independence and all that jazz. But aside from that, we really don't learn much at all about important things like the War of 1812.
8,
Canadians are more passive-aggressive. A good example of this would be tribalism and all of its derivatives. While it's more overt in the US, that doesn't mean it's any less in Canada. It just comes out in a more backhanded fashion.
Yeah, we're more likely to leave a slightly aggressive note on a car windshield than we are to attack the car with a baseball bat.
Passive aggressive. I like that. I mean, that's a byproduct of not trying to be directly confrontational, directly aggressive towards someone and start a fight. Instead, you're just kind of passive aggressive, like, oh, yeah, go ahead. Take my last pretzel. I didn't want that anyway. Something like that.
7,
Canadians brag about how cold it is, while Americans brag about how warm it is. Unless you live in Minnesota, then you're
What?
basically Canadian.
Pretty much. We share very similar accents and habits and manners. Thank you, Minnesota. You're polite. I like you.
6,
Why would you want it to be cold?
Oh, we don't want it to be cold. We're just proud that we can take the cold. When I was growing up, we had snowbanks that would bury the front door. We could shovel the roof and then jump off of it into the snow. There were days when I would go outside and my nose hairs would turn into icicles. encountered like minus 30 degrees and minus 40 degrees with the wind chill. Now that's in Celsius, and for a little bit of comparison, minus 40 degrees in Fahrenheit is minus 40 degrees in Celsius.
I think if given the choice to die by heat or die by cold, Americans would majority want to die by heat. Leave me out of the cold. No freezing to death for me. Thank you very much.
Now, me too. I spent some time in Nevada and Arizona, and when the sun was out on a hot day where there was a heat advisory saying stay indoors with your air conditioning, I was just outside like, yes, I want to live here.
Give me 12 blankets when it just gets even close to wintertime. My goodness.
6.
Me too.
Americans are much more polarized on almost everything.
Yeah.
But then again, there are more people in just California than all of Canada. So it makes sense that Canadians...
I didn't know that. I've never looked up like the Canadian population. Man, that does make sense with all the polarization. There's also, we're a melting pot, as we've said before, as we love to say. A lot of different points of view, a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different people. And they are happy to give their points of view and fight over it. So,
I think the personal space has a lot to do with it. I grew up in a forest where my closest neighbor was across the street, but it was still like from front door to front door, maybe a quarter of a kilometer.
yeah, that's certainly true of America.
Canadians would be more unified.
5.
I like
In
that.
the US, talking about American politics is taboo. But in Canada, talking about American politics is a national pastime.
Yeah, it's an entertainment for us. And we have a lot of thoughts, and we have absolutely no decision-making power.
Yeah, it's pretty entertaining, isn't it? Almost sadly so entertaining. More like a reality TV show at times. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we also analyze it like the left versus blue, red versus blue, left versus right is offering a Hegelian dialectic of you versus me. It's highly polarized. And in Canada, with our political parties and our personal space, we have more nuanced opinions.
Don't get me started. But no, that's actually changing a bit in America. When was this video made? 2017. Yeah, that makes sense. This is 5 years old. That is not true anymore. Americans are getting more and more comfortable with talking about politics openly.
And that 2017, 1 year into Orange Man.
And I say that sounding a bit disheartened because it only seems to cause conflict and disagreements, wanting to just talk about politics in the open like that.
That's the Hegelian dialectic, the one side versus the other side.
It very rarely is constructive, and even when you're with your friends and those of like mind who agree with you, that can just lead to an echo chamber where you're all agreeing on how great you are, how great your point of view is all day.
How Orange Man literally divided families just because of their political opinions.
How dumb the other guys are. And that's not good to get stuck in that frame of mind either. So,
4.
I don't know.
Canadians are more likely to take off their shoes in the house. Of course, this depends on location, but in many parts of the US, walking with shoes in the house is acceptable. Maybe it's the cowboy influence.
Yeah, so in my time, there are maybe 2 houses where I was told, you can keep your shoes on. One was because we were going down into the basement where there was, like, stuff you might step on. And another time was because we were going down into the basement where the floor was just cold.
This always kind of annoyed me because I was taught to take my shoes off indoors. Take them off. You're gonna get everything dirty. That's an insult to whoever owns the place. And if it's your place, Why do you wanna get it all dirty? Take your shoes off.
Yeah.
3.
Come on.
Canadians
Polite.
think Canada is completely different from the US. Americans, on the other hand, don't notice much of a difference between the two countries. As a note,
Absolutely.
from a European perspective, any differences will seem a bit overstated.
Yeah, I would be hard for me to come up with any serious difference that I know of between America and Canada. A lot of people move from Canada to America, America to Canada. That'd be fascinating, though, because then you'd get the real experience, right? You'd really know what the differences are.
Yes, and I have some family that moved from Ontario to California, and they noticed big differences over the years. And since then, the way that we've each grown up separately, we have also noticed big differences and big similarities, because we're practically in the same land. Practically. Just keep your flag down there.
I'd actually be very interested to see a video or something of someone's experience changing countries like that. But no, Americans certainly view Canada as very, very similar to America in most all ways. Yeah.
Many.
Except we always tend to think of maple syrup, how you say sorry instead of sorry.
How we end a sentence with a, whereas y'all might end a sentence with huh.
And I always just think of how much I love Degrassi. So that's my
Degrassi Junior High. TV show from the 90s.
guilty pleasure.
2.
Americans have it easier when it comes to shopping online. In Canada, many stores don't offer online shopping, and many of them don't even have a website to begin with.
That was true in 2017, and now after 2020, well, you know.
Oh no, this is blasphemy. This is shocking. This might be the new most shocking thing. Online shopping is a way of life in America. Online shopping is the new in-person shopping. It has replaced it.
All right, so my sister does online shopping and in-person shopping. One of my exes almost exclusively did her shopping online, and myself, I'm still old in the head, I guess. I like to go out to the stores, look at and examine, price compare, and then walk out with the thing.
Everyone online shops. If you're a company in America, a retailer, and you don't have a website, that would be crazy. Now, this video is 5 years old,
Right.
so maybe this has changed
Yes.
in modern Canada,
Yeah.
if that's a way of saying it.
True.
Maybe Canada has moved more towards a digital age.
Well, lockdown 2020 definitely had a lot to do with that.
Because, I mean, as a company, you're just going to get a lot more sales. I mean,
That too.
it's just profit-driven, capitalism and all that.
Yeah.
Making that money. You want to sell your stuff online because you can reach the entire world in the click of a button. So it's kind of, that's how most American companies would view it. Just too much of an opportunity cost to not do it. You got to be online, and Americans love it.
Yeah, and Canada often becomes more Americanized over the years. It just takes a little bit of time.
We're addicted to online shopping.
1.
Canada has 2 official languages on a national level, English and French. Americans have no official language on a national level. Each state
Yeah.
decides whether or not to adopt English as an official language.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that. But I guess that makes sense because America's all about the states' rights.
Americans are pretty well aware that French is spoken in Canada. I have no idea to what extent it is spoken.
Okay, so in Quebec, it is the predominant language. There are laws to say that every sign has to be French first in Quebec, and in Ontario, everything needs to be both English and French. The language police are basically a real thing. I mean, they're not literally language police, but they are practically language police. In Ontario, we have some French cities and towns. We've got some French-named towns across the prairies as well. And some of the coastal island provinces are also very French, like New Brunswick, very French, also very English. Nova Scotia, a little bit of French, mostly English. I grew up in Ottawa, and right across the Ottawa River is Quebec. So my parents put me into French immersion when I started going to school. Alors moi, je parle français aussi que l'anglais, et c'est pas tout le monde qui fait ça, c'est pas normal ici en Niagara, mais quand même, il y a beaucoup de personnes qui parlent français aussi qu'anglais.
He's saying that it's actually technically a national language, which would probably suggest it's very, very, very commonly spoken, which I wasn't quite aware of. Certainly the English part, naturally.
Well, I have a friend, and I speak both languages with him. Je vous aime, Antoine. When I'm in the Costco, sometimes I'll encounter other people who are talking to each other in French, but I'll also encounter other people talking to each other in Spanish, like at the gym, and other languages just like out in public. It's very normal.
But yeah, I would have thought English would be the national language of America, technically, but a lot of things are chosen on a state-by-state level, so just on a technicality, I guess it's not.
Yeah. Tristan, we should go to Canada one day. I'd love to. Let's do it. You want to go now?
Wow, that was a good video. That was a good video.
Well done.
Hold on. List 25 with your 2.5 million subscribers. Wow. Ooh. I give you a like because that was a nice video. All 25 of those things were super interesting. There were a few things there that were genuinely shocking. But also many, many things that kind of reinforce that thought that Canada and the United States are quite similar.
Yeah.
Even after seeing this, I still believe that it's just like some cultural differences, which you're going to find when you compare any nations in the world, but
it's like we're neighbors and we're brothers.
This was fascinating. I really did enjoy this video. It gave me a much more detailed, much more intimate, if you will, look into Canadian culture, like what the average Canadian person actually thinks about and, like, you know, all that jazz. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this reaction, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more content like this, me reacting to Canadian themes and culture and ideas, landmarks, all that, feel free to subscribe to the channel for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Science, spirit, life, Nerd Pumpkin.